Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and today we have a special guest returning to the show. Sam is here, and Maven, you introduce Sam.
Yeah. So I missed Sam when you were on before, and you gave your story of growing up in the church as someone, I guess, in the church's terms, who struggled with same-sex attraction. There's so many experiences that I know that members of the church go through with that, but one. It seems like a defining one for you that also has influenced your current work, which we'll hear more about today, was conversion therapy, or at least attempts to do that. So go ahead and give us any kind of a refresher if you'd like for our audience. We will link the original video as well, but if you want to give us a quick recap and updates since then to your life and what you've got coming up for Pride here soon.
Yes, thank you. So my name's Sam. I was raised in Provo, Utah. Because I did the whole Mormon thing, I ended up going on a mission in Texas. And when I was there, a missionary tried to get me into his bed. And so that meant that I had to say no repeatedly, but I still felt guilty because I was struggling with same-sex attraction. So I told my mission president, Cat was now out of the bag, and he sent me home with honor. And that felt weird because why am I being sent home with honor if I'm sent home early? It just felt really weird. But the natural consequence was go to conversion therapy. So I saw a lot of therapists. It didn't work. Just in case you're wondering, you can't actually pray the gay away. I know that some people still think you can, but that is not the story. So yeah, a year and a half I went through conversion therapy, and then eventually I saw the expert who helped me actually kind of realize that it's never going to go away. He said that it's something you're just going to have to deal with for the rest of your life, and was kind of saying that you're just going to have to be okay if you cheat on your wife and you have kids, and it doesn't really matter because just keep going ahead the way you're supposed to, right? And I was not okay with that, and realized that if he's saying this is something always going to be there, then why don't I try it out, type of thing? Because I assumed if the church is still true, I'll know, because wickedness never was happiness, right? I loved the scriptures, and I felt like I also listened to the temple, where Eve partakes of the fruit. To fulfill one covenant, you have to break another. So I figured, why don't I break this covenant for now so that a bigger covenant can be kept, where I actually know that this doesn't work for me and being gay is wrong. But turns out I've never been happier, and it was really traumatic. It was very traumatic to have to heal, but over the years, I have kind of taken the Mormon spirit with me, of service, of honesty, of authenticity, and that kind of led me to where I am as a board member of Conversion Therapy Survivor Network. And so now I get to meet with other survivors like myself. We get to make healing spaces. We do some advocacy. And it's been pretty rewarding for me. So that's where I am now.
I remember from your last interview, you had talked about, I think, more or less conversion therapy is debunked. With the current political climate in the United States, though, I fear, and maybe you do too, that it may have a comeback, and which would be really unfortunate. So, if you have thoughts on that, let's go there, and I'll save my next question for after.
Yeah, I think I love what you said, because if you go to the research, I think it helps clarify what conversion therapy really is. Because people will often think that conversion therapy is just electroshock therapy or something particular, right? They won't
really
see what it exactly, and they'll
Invasive.
say that's obviously wrong, right? But what they're not thinking about is SOGICE, and it stands for sexual orientation, gender identity, change efforts. And it's the last part, the CE. When you're trying to change someone's sexual orientation or even their gender identity, so the entire LGBTQ, right? If you try to change someone who's ace into a sexual person or an allosexual person, right? Any type of attempt to force someone to be something that they're not by definition is conversion therapy. And so that's what the research looks into. When you try to force someone to change who they are, what are the impacts? And the overwhelming evidence shows that it's deeply harmful. It increases PTSD symptoms, suicidality. It runs the gamut. And because I just came from a conversion therapy survivor meeting, I can tell you, it is a lifelong thing that you think you can be healed, and then boom, another part that you thought you didn't impact you anymore is now suddenly up front, and you have to deal with it. So it is coming into a resurgence because people are only focusing on the past ways that it used to happen. They're forgetting that in 2015, a bunch of people in what was called the ex-gay movement, a bunch of people in the ex-gay movement came out and said, oh, oops, I never changed. And all these hundreds of people who have taken their lives because of what I taught them, oops, right? And because it's in the past, that's not fresh on our memory. And it's getting a resurgence on TikTok. There are people who are saying, well, I'm not saying you can change, but I am saying you can give it to Jesus. But you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig, right? Like if you're still trying to, if you can claim, oh, well, I'm not changing you, I'm trying to suppress your sexuality. Suppression is still a change of your natural, normal expression, and it's still harmful. So yeah, it is getting a resurgence, and the Supreme Court is going to be listening to a case where Colorado has a ban on conversion therapy for minors. And they're going to be able to say about probably next October whether bans on conversion therapy are constitutional or not. And they will be removing protections that we have for minors. And I can tell you, none of those laws would have helped me, because it's when I came home from my mission that it happened. But at the very least, we're not putting kids through this torture. And it's only protected in half the US. So in the other half of the US, you can send them to camps. You can do what I did. And so, yeah, it's a pretty scary thing.
I'm just sad about all the increasing harm. Across the board, it seems that our country really has a problem with autonomy. Honestly, that's what it is at the end of the day. And it really just seems so, this might sound crass to say, but so genital focused. They're so focused on people's reproductive organs, what they're doing, who with, and for women, when it comes to like reproduction, it's still the same thing. It's still all the same organs. Who can you force to reproduce? Who can you force to change the way you want them to, and who can you prevent from changing the way they want to? It's just really sad. And so I'm glad that you're doing this work. I'm hitting the reproductive rights a lot, but really it's all the same battle. And I think if we as a country, if we could value consent, if we could value autonomy and informed medical practices, I think both on the mental health, but also actual medical doctors who specialize in these areas. I just wish they were the ones helping us to make decisions, and not politicians based on personal belief systems. So anyway,
science-based.
Yes, science-based all across the board. Here's hoping we can push that forward. So so you have a support group. Is that do you want to talk about that a little bit, and for people to join, give us some information how to find you, or how to find other groups around them if they can't join yours?
Yeah, so it's part of Conversion Therapy Survivor Network. You can just go to conversionsurvivor.org, and you'll see there are various programs. And the main program that we have is what we call Survivor Sunday. So survivors, I think we had 4 countries represented this Sunday. So it's worldwide. Anyone can show up. As long as you're a survivor, you are welcome. And we don't tell you if you're a survivor. We don't make you fill out a form being like, yes, they harmed me this much, therefore I'm qualified. This is not Trauma Olympics. If you feel like you could benefit from a group of individuals where they struggled coming out because of SOGICE, then you're welcome. So it happens every week. And we will also go to Pride events so that we can, say there's this organization for you. If you want to join, you can go to Survivor Sunday. We have other places where we organize, like Discord, where we 24/7 can be there. We will educate people about conversion therapy and the way to help survivors heal. So the main program that we have is that Survivor Sunday. So if you or anyone you know had a difficult coming out, go ahead and send them to conversionsurvivor.org and see if the Sunday meeting is a good thing for you. And if not, that's okay. But I think that's really just the important thing, because I can tell you, oh yeah, and that right there is our survivor flag. The
Okay, I was just
community,
gonna say. All right.
yeah, the
Cool.
community came together and we decided this is a valid community. We do not get enough publicity. Let's make our own flag. And we made a bunch of them. And then as a community, we voted on it. And this is it. And it's funny because someone tells me that he has this, the flag on one of his pillows at home. And it's always a conversation starter. And so
Yeah.
what he says is the gray is to represent memory loss that we experience because of the trauma that we received. And then he'll be like, and I forgot what the other colors mean. And so it's kind of a funny way. And you can see on the screen, yeah, you can see on the screen that basically it represents what's happened to us and how we can come out of it by seeking community. And so that's our website where you would go to. You can make donations there as well.
Is this like a pop-up, I guess? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's our
here's what it
logo.
is.
There's programs. You can see our leadership, ways to contact us, stuff like that. And I am a board member now. I can tell you that when I first came out of conversion therapy in about 2006, there was no one I could talk to about it. The general queer community was very accepting, but no one could ever specifically sit down and be like, are you still waking up with nightmares? Like, how do you deal with that? Right? There was never a discussion of that. There was never a discussion of, there were some discussions of like, I just lost my community, what do I do? Because I mean, that's pretty ubiquitous within the queer experience, but things that were specific to survivors, the PTSD traumas, the nightmares, the re-triggers, things like that just were not being discussed, and I had to figure it out all on my own. And to be honest, I was not mentally well for years, honestly for years. But now that I have this organization that I can connect with, I started going every week and found a lot of healing. And I'll be honest, I felt kind of guilty that I had got all this healing and no one else knows about it. And I felt like it was really important to start talking about it. So I made my own TikTok. I call it Can't Pray Me Away as my handle.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, and I start trying to talk about it, and we are getting more people come into the groups. I think it's just really important. I think even if you can't donate, I think the most important thing we need is to just get the word out, because I know there are people out there still suffering, because there are people who can come into the meeting and they just finished their conversion therapy a month ago. It is still happening repeatedly. The Trevor Report recently came out with the Trevor Project just came out with a report showing that it is happening nationwide. It is alive and well. And so this organization is definitely needed, but so many survivors just don't even know we exist. That's why we're going to Pride. Specifically, we're going to Utah Pride this year. It's going to be a big deal. There's this guy named Ryan Josiah on TikTok who
looks like
dresses
Jesus.
up. Yeah, he dresses up as Jesus. He gives people hugs. And he decided he would connect with us.
Rainbow
And
Jesus too, right? See where the
yeah,
rainbow robe.
that's what he is. We've gotten some news publications around gay Jesus, and he's partnering with us, Conversion Therapy Survivor Network. He helped us start a fundraiser. We're using those funds so that we can go to Utah Pride and try to make it as big as possible, because the more publicity we can get, the more people can find out that there's a place for them where they can heal. Plus, I mean, if the flags start becoming a big thing and people purchase flags, again, it will start conversations. What is this? What's this new community I've never heard of, right? Like so many of our other letters of the alphabet aren't getting their due justice. And our survivor would just be enough.
Yeah. No,
Is
that's
that
great.
like the first weekend of June?
It is June 7th and 8th, I think it is.
We're caught here. I've got to, I'll pull it up. Maybe.
And lucky enough,
Yes,
because
Saturday,
we got
Sunday,
enough
7 and 8.
donations. Thank you. because we got enough donations, we're also going to be in the parade walking. And I think that'll be helpful to not just have a booth, because we usually just have a booth. And the booth is good. But people will often come up and say, is this still happening? Oh my gosh. And
yeah. I remember from your last interview, you talked about how the language, this is something that we already know happens in Mormonism, where like porn addiction is something that's not recognized by the general, what are the words I'm looking
Scientific
for?
community,
Right.
mental health care.
Yeah, and these are things that came out with the Jody Hildebrand and Ruby Frankie child abuse cases, was that Jody was billing a lot of her things revolving around porn addiction as just depression and anxiety, but yet she was still had these harmful programs, but just kind of under the table or skirting around regulations, I guess. And it's the same, it sounded like, with conversion therapy. It's just more sophisticated language to do the same harm.
Yeah, my last conversion therapist is still practicing, and he was a loud voice to try to not have the ban on conversion therapy for children happen in Utah. As of right now, I do believe conversion therapy is banned for children, and he was a vocal advocate against that ban because he thinks that it needs to happen.
That's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope I can see you there too. I'm not sure if I'll be able to pull it together, but if I can, I will. If I can get myself to Utah, I will be happy to join you and the program in the parade, or maybe I can be at the booth. So like you guys are doing like that kind of stuff. But I guess and I bet if there are people in Utah who are also going, you probably are willing to take volunteers, or if you want people to help hand out flyers or things like that, so they can contact you for that as well. We'll have all the contact information below. But yeah, I think that's it. Is there's a really quick update? Is there anything more to discuss, or is that basically it? And hopefully we'll see a lot of people at Pride in Salt Lake.
I want to stress how important it is that there are so many people who don't consider themselves conversion therapy survivors until someone gives them the language, right? Just like so many other people in the queer community know something is going on, and then someone gives them a label and they realize this has been me. Every single time we go to Pride, people will come up and they'll say, well, I'm not a survivor, but, and then they'll start sharing their experience of how it was to come out and how their family didn't want them to, how their family tried to pray it away or get into a marriage or do all these things. And we get to lean in and say, honey, that is conversion therapy. And people will just cry at our booth because they realize this is why it's been so hard. I thought it was me, right? But no, you're not the problem. You're a conversion therapy survivor. That's why coming out was so difficult for them. And they may never need the label ever again. And that's okay. Like, right, if you don't need the label, that's fine. But just knowing that it's not your fault, that can change lives. And honestly, that can save lives. So I think that's I want people to leave with that knowledge.
I have a good friend who is trans, and it just occurred to me, she's never used the language either that her therapy has been conversion therapy. But yeah, I'm going to reach out to her actually now and talk to her about that. What kinds of things do you want to give us some examples? So for people watching, what are, I'm going to interrupt myself. And bring up asexuality as we're talking about labels being helpful. That was one that was very helpful for me because I didn't know it was a thing. And I was, especially as a Mormon, still very distressed by the idea of, obligatory wifely duties, not just for this life, but for all eternity, that were just, I thought, an inevitable part of my future. And once I started to realize that I was experiencing the world quite differently than anybody else, it was distressing. And I did think I was broken. And I was trying to figure out what was wrong, like including health appointments and even therapy, like trying to fix something. But it just increased the anxiety. It just added to it because the more you don't get fixed and the more you don't get changed, the more, I don't know, frightening and frustrating and hopeless it seems. So I do talk about being asexual. I don't I do identify with the label, but I also don't need to. But that was what was helpful for me. And I know that one of the first things, if you go into like asexual subreddits, one of the most common posts is like, "Am I asexual?" And then they'll list a thing that they think disqualifies them from being asexual, and almost always it will be, you know, it'll be masturbation. That's just that's a really human experience. But anyway, like they'll think if there's any attraction or any kind of sexual feelings at all, then that means I can't be asexual. But that's not what that means. Anyway, I just remembered that was the most common thing is, am I ace? I go through this, and then but all of it fits. So
Mhm.
if yeah, what are some of the most common ones then that you hear that people don't realize? So you mentioned one, which is your family members trying to pray for you to be changed. Are there people who like have therapists, like maybe like my friend did, where even though like they know it was therapy and it was LDS doctrine based therapy, but they still don't see it as conversion therapy?
All the
What's
time.
okay? What's
All the time.
what's the difference,
The,
or what do you say to help them like
mhm.
clock that in?
That's one of the difficult parts of being a survivor is that often when we're in therapy, parts of it can be healing, and so then we wonder, is it me just making a big deal about nothing, right?
Mhm.
But let's be honest. Even the handbook in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says if you change your pronouns, or rather, if you give us your correct pronouns, then you're going to be disqualified to participate. That is doctrinal conversion therapy. That is
Mm.
telling you if you do not change, there is a consequence socially and spiritually. If that's not an attempt to change a trans person, I don't know what is. And trying to tell someone, hey, you not you appear, they would just call you a woman. If you're a woman, this is how to flirt with a boy, right? This is what you need to do, not even considering this could be an asexual person in the room. And now you're trying to tell them, if you don't flirt with the boy right, if you don't enjoy being with the boy in this particular way, then you need to pray about it.
Hmm.
That's conversion therapy on an asexual person. It doesn't have to be something intentional to have the impact. And that's why we say, look at SOGICE, look at the term. Is it an attempt to change someone? Whether it's intentional or maybe it's just a byproduct. If the impact is to make someone feel broken for just being who they are, then I think that we need to not have a binary between whether you are or are not a survivor. It's to what degree.
Yeah.
And how much do you need to heal from that? That's the type of thing that we will talk about all the time in our group, is even just being married in a mixed orientation marriage. You can do that without it being conversion therapy. But if you did it with a mutual understanding that hopefully this will change you, or if you're doing it with
Hmm.
the understanding that you have no other options and it's not really what you would want, then the impact of that is conversion therapy. It runs the gamut.
Okay. What about so I'm usually seeing conversion therapy as someone trying to make you change your behavior or trying to change who you are. But I'm thinking now with like the amount of gay men who were encouraged, you know, to go on a mission and were told that and believed that going on a mission and serving God just naturally would change them. I would that be that would count then, because you're not going on a mission to have the mission change you. You're just going on a mission and then God is supposed to change you.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
reward.
Right. And then same for getting
Yeah.
into, you know, heterosexual marriages. Like, okay, well, the mission didn't change you and make you straight, but get into a straight marriage and have children and be faithful. And if you do all that, then like God will make you straight. And so even just, I think that kind of a promise, like if you
Mm-hmm.
do this, then you'll be straight.
Mm-hmm.
That would also be, that would, okay.
That is
Okay.
SOGICE.
That
That
makes
is
sense.
why a lot of people in the scientific community, and I'm thinking of one in particular, Lucas Wilson, author of Shame, Sex Attraction. It's a really good book.
Mm,
He and other people advocate to drop the therapy part and just call it a conversion practice. Because when you do
mm,
that, you realize it's not just the therapy room that harms people.
yeah.
Because the point of SOGICE is to make someone feel broken and to make them conform. That's the point of SOGICE. And that's why it's damaging, because you're blocking someone from accessing their authentic self. You're blocking someone from trusting their own sensations, their own emotions, right? Because so many people, like you said, I'm tired of people making my existence a sexual thing. I'm tired of people caring what my husband and I do in the bedroom when I just want to play video games with my husband. That's what marriage looks like to me. And
Yeah.
I got it, right? That's my marriage. And people just immediately focus on the bedroom and focus on the behavior. But it's so much more than that. It's an experience. And when you tell me that I should disconnect from my authentic experience, that is a conversion practice. That is SOGICE, and that's why it's harmful. And that's why people come up to our booth and just start crying, because they realize they're a survivor too.
Plus, in a way, it's non-consensual.
Mm-hmm.
By saying, God wants this when nobody's talking to God.
Yeah, well, and let's be honest, the Mormon church believes that all things will be fixed in the next life. They think we will become heterosexuals if we're faithful. That's our reward. The reward is conversion therapy. It is SOGICE, it is a conversion practice. So you can claim that you denounce the practice all you want, Mormon church, but we see you, we know what you do, we know about North Star, it still happens, you're just changing your language.
I mean, my brother is left-handed, and people would say try to get him to use his right hand or whatever, and he couldn't do it really, right? And I've seen other people try to do that, and when you do things like that, you're basically trying to make a left-handed person just more able to use their right hand. You're not changing their handedness, and so it'd be like if there was conversion hand therapy. Nobody.
Which there kind of was, and there used to be a lot of stigma around it, which is sad.
Yeah.
But the thing is you are
But I
also
think
like
that's
putting
recognized
unnecessary
now.
barriers in place for kids like that. When it's if you could just give them the left-handed scissors, they'll be right there with their peers. But now they have to struggle with the thing, that puts them on the back foot and puts behind. And I think that's true for all of us. If as long as we're being pushed into something or to conform to something that we are not and never will be and never can be, even if we really, really want to, that's so much life and energy and effort wasted that could be spent on us being happy and moving forward and living our true best life and actually having fun and having meaningful connections that we can't have. But the people who already conform, they do have. They get to pursue the things that they want to, while as everyone else has to spend all this time and dedication to change something inherent about them. It's just really an unfair form of discrimination, I guess I would say. Yeah.
And that's the major reason why conversion therapy for me was so harmful, because I deeply believed in the church and I wanted to do what God wanted me to do. But when therapy doesn't work, because you can't change someone through therapy, I was the problem. I was the one who wasn't trying hard enough. I was always the problem. And it made me honestly psychotic, because I had to keep working harder and finding out, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And there was nothing I was doing wrong. It was creating a problem that hadn't been there in the first place. So
Yeah.
this is why we exist, because healing is very much needed, and that never should have happened.
That's a great wrap up, I think. Thanks for coming back on, Sam. I hope I can see you at Pride in Salt Lake here soon. And thanks to the audience for joining us again. Again, we'll have links below. We'll also have the previous interview to get more of Sam's story. If you want to hear that, it's definitely worth it. And yeah, we'll see you when we see you.
Like and subscribe and do all the things, and have a great 2025.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Are you ending it?